Let's do this. Hello, Cliff.
Well, hello. How are you, Justin?
How are you? Hey, welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. We've been doing this over 7 years, over 500 episodes. I think we're coming up on 500 episodes. I have to do the math.
You know what? I
Cliff,
don't know how anybody can keep track at The Simpsons, at the production house. How do you keep track of how many episodes you've done when
I don't
it's
know,
this
but
many?
all
How
I
do you
know,
keep track?
Cliff, is you're my longest relationship.
Do you know what? Wow. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take what I can get.
Hey,
Um,
my
now,
name's Justin. This is Cliff. We're regular
hello.
volunteer contributors to the OneRing.net, all volunteer fan site run by and for fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. We are not a corporate beast of a machine. We don't have an ad budget. We don't even have a budget. We don't actually make money. Like, we are a not-for-profit website. We purposely don't make money. Everything that we say, speak, hear comes from a level of passion that Cliff has turned his passion into acting. You can see him in the background of some of the Lord of the Rings movies. He's credited in the films. Cliff also wrote, along with several staffers of the OneRing.net, The People's Guide to J.R.R. Tolkien, which is included in many of the official Tolkien libraries around the country and around the world. And of course, you produced and wrote Ringers, Lord of the Fans, the definitive documentary on Lord of the Rings fandom throughout the years. So, Cliff, you really have a pulse of what
starring
fandom is all about.
starring Dominic Monaghan in his very first narration role, but not his last. He went to work for National Geographic to be a narrator, and then he went on to host and narrate his own wonderfully acclaimed series, Wild Things, with Dominic Monaghan.
That's
And
right.
you're so
And
funny.
he's in your poster. He's not. Well, that's Nicholas Holt in Tolkien. That's Cliff in Lord of the Rings: Return of the
That's
King on the
that's me in the
wall,
Return of the King, standing uh,
closest to
on the
camera.
wall. Look,
You're
I'm
closest
looking
to
at
camera.
Faramir. This is the scene called the Sacrifice of Faramir, where I'm watching the men leave allegedly. But what I was staring at was a camera crane swooping by my face. I was supposed to be watching our boy Faramir and his men leaving the gates of Gondor. Now, Justin, it is so good to have you with me here on another edition of our weekly live stream, theonering.net, forged by and for the fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. It's good to have you here, sir. Um, we're hearing a lot of rumors, and we might as well prepare the people. We want to tell the people at home, guess what? We are going to drop a special announcement on Monday. So in 6 days, Monday morning, keep your eyes on our news feed for Facebook and Twitter, and of course, Instagram and Periscope and Twitch and everywhere else where we happen to be. Take a look at what's happening on Monday morning. There's a hint, a whisper in the wind, and it's pretty cool. We have a special surprise, and we will exclusively have that news on Monday. I cannot make any more of a hint. I cannot give any more hints. So don't come at me on my Instagram or my Twitter trying to get a hint,
Cliff,
because you're not going to get one.
what are you doing here? Like, I can't. I don't even know what you're talking about.
We have a special news
So
announcement
next
Monday.
next Monday we're announcing something. Well, okay.
We're
Well,
announcing
if
something
if you're not going to
exclusively
say
that
anything,
nowhere else in the world will have the news. This is exclusive, and it's
what?
big news for the Lord of
Let
the
me ask you
Rings
this:
fan community.
is it official news?
Yes, it's official news.
So
It's not rumor.
this isn't gossip and rumor. You've got official news, but you can't tell us this week.
So what we can talk about in terms of rumor is I just got off the phone today with some wonderful people at a wonderful place. And they said, we want to give you some wonderful news because the OneRing.net is, after 20 years, like this major web portal, this ongoing destination and a community of fans, And right or wrong, recent controversy or not, we still have to break the news with everybody. So come Monday, a very special person will be on a special video announcement, making an exclusive announcement about something that may be of interest to us all. And then um, we can go back to the regular Green Dragon Inn, where we're sipping on an ale in the back of the, in the back of the tavern, quietly whispering the other nonsense that we usually talk about on a Tuesday. We'll get to the other nonsense later on Tuesday, but on Monday, we have a hard news announcement. Real news exclusively happening right here on the OneRing.net. Cheers to that.
So you're saying that we peddle in official, legit news, and we also peddle in rumors and gossip.
It is fair to say that all things being equal, we are purveyors of a very fine product. No, we are purveyors of a very fine community of people who are having a lot of energized conversations. And that includes rumor and speculation, but it usually leads to confirmation. We get our sources, and then we could get the confirmation weeks and weeks, sometimes months later. You know, last week, I believe, Justin, you had speculated that Amazon Studios is only going to do 8 episodes for their opening season of their Middle Earth series, and you said that they were currently done, finishing the 2 episodes directed by J.A. Bayona, and I've got word that they have gone back into production and they're not done. And look, there it is, deadline, just said there on September 28th. They are still actively filming, and I've been hearing
they sent the pilot back for reshoots because, as far as I know, that's as far as I've heard, they were done with filming. For the pilot.
They're not done. Nope, they're filming. And you know what else I'm hearing? I'm hearing whispers in the wind that they're filming to try to get approval from a certain somebody when they get those 2 episodes done and in the can, because you put them back to back, and that would be a 90-minute or maybe a 2-hour feature film directed by Mr. Bayona. And those 2 episodes are a litmus test where they're going to get those finished and polished up to the best they can, put a shine on that little acorn, button that Bilbo has, his little shiny brass buttons. They're going to put a shine on that brass button, and then they're going to present it to people for approval. I don't know if they're going to present it to the board or to Jeff Bezos, or if they're going to present it to the fans with a sneak peek for the fans. Maybe they're going to present it to the family, the Tolkien estate. But I'm hearing rumors that they're going to make this special thing and then present it to somebody for approval. And here's my list. I think they're going to present it to either Jeff Bezos or to the Tolkien estate, or they're going to present it to the board of directors, or whoever those people are at Amazon. And fourth possibility, they might do a sneak peek and present something of a sneak for us to look at, the fans. I don't know, but that's the rumor I'm hearing now. Please.
So what you're saying is everything that I've heard, I deliver the gossip as I hear it. And you're saying that someone reached out to you that is deep embedded and said, we want to correct the record. What you guys said is close but not accurate. You're saying the pilot is not done.
No, this person that I spoke with was not aware of what we had reported last week. They were not aware that we were talking about it. So no, they didn't issue a correction. I had a conversation with someone and I asked, is it true? Can I double check that they're all wrapped up on the pilot, on the 2 episodes? We would consider them jointly as one thing, that, 2 episodes to make one pilot, if you want to consider it a 2-part thing. But the answer is no, they're back, boots on the ground.
Okay, hold on. Well, so I want to tell you what's been going on, okay? Because they were supposed to shoot the pilot earlier this year. They shot the pilot earlier this year. Production paused because of COVID. Production resumed as soon as New Zealand opened up their country. They rushed to finish it, finish the pilot. because they are scheduled to start production on the entire series the first week of October, October 4th.
That's
So
cool. Well,
if you're
also keep in mind
so
there was a bump in the road where the health officials in New Zealand shut things down a little bit for a while, and then they just got the news Saturday that they're restarting. So they have some stuff to finish. So it might not be reshoots. It might be that they didn't get everything exactly because there was another temporary hold on production because there was an uptick in COVID cases. Then it went back down again. And now they're back at the camera again.
it sounds like, look, if it sounds like that someone at Amazon saw what they had and they're like, we have to make changes before we present this to the boss. That's what it
Well,
sounds like. And
maybe I
that
don't
does
I
not
don't know
instill confidence.
who is in the background of this rumor. What we don't know, and we can only guess, is who is the boss that it's going to be shown to. Is that either the Tolkien estate and they have some veto power, or is it going to be Jeff Bezos himself? Does Jeff Bezos have veto power to change anything on it? I mean, we know he's a fan. He's a big Ringer fan. Or maybe we speculate that they're going to show it to a bunch of people who make up this board of directors or this controlling interest in the studio. I don't know who they're going to show it to, but all I know is that I'm hearing they're not quite finished yet on these first two
And they
episodes.
cannot start production. Let's be clear. They cannot start production on the TV series until there is sign off and approval on the pilot. You cannot move forward with just going and shooting stuff until the pilot is signed off. This means that everything is on hold, pause, until this pilot is signed off. And Cliff, if I recall
Is that
correctly, the
unusual? Now
Tolkien estate
let's also
said that
ask the
they have.
question. Let's ask the question: is that unusual, or is that business as usual for TV? Okay. Okay.
The question is, if the pilot that the so the schedule was production needed to start the first week of October. That of course COVID has delayed a bunch of stuff, and that's fair. But you're telling me that, as far as I heard, they were done with the pilot, and it was in post production. Because Cliff, you and I both know that this show requires a lot of post production visual effects. It requires a lot.
Look at that headline from, put that back up. Put the browser screen back up. What's the date on that news story? Yesterday. It's yesterday. What can I say? That seems to confirm the rumors that I'm hearing. That they're in pilot mode. That's what I'm hearing. But it's also intriguing that we're hearing other rumors about Avatar and James Cameron getting boots on the ground. And now there's even additional news that I didn't hear until I'm reading it there. Netflix's live action Cowboy Bebop is ready to restart their production. Wow.
In
Okay,
New
so
Zealand. Hey, a little bit of housekeeping. A lot of people saying, "Hey, why are you guys live so early?" Today, we decided to go live because there's something on TV this evening that everyone should be part of.
there's something on TV this evening that will start at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. at our normal time. So we were doing a 1 hour early broadcast. And thank you everybody for joining us. Yeah, a little bit of housekeeping is helpful, but because there is a debate going on at that time, which is of great civic interest to those Americans who are civic minded, and so it'll be a great conversation that we have right now in our early time slot. Apologize for doing this early, but we want to keep the airwaves clear so people can go and take part in the other conversation. And
So, and to be to be clear,
democracy in action and all that stuff.
you're
Yes.
saying that so according to your new gossipy bird, that they are not going into series production. They're still shooting the pilot. This is normal. If I recall correctly, the Game of Thrones pilot was so bad they reshot almost the entire pilot. If I recall correctly, Westworld reshot their pilot because one of the main actors died soon after filming. So there's many reasons to
Yeah.
reshoot a pilot, and it doesn't mean it's
Yes.
bad. It just means they're behind schedule. And of course, with COVID, that's to be expected. Now, Cliff, the other juicy rumor I'm hearing is they're recasting some of the parts.
No, I had not heard that. I had not heard that.
So our friends, so we are hearing that a couple of the parts are being recast. So this would
Now,
make sense if they are going to reshoot the pilot or parts of the pilot. Um, this makes sense that this would be the time that they would be taking new auditions and new castings for
mhm.
existing characters.
Well, I don't know from my rumor that there's no reshoots. I've been told it's still just the standard, for, original wave of principal photography that is going on. So that's, please, ladies and gentlemen who's watching the show, put that as a feather in your hat as rumor. Yeah, but the rumor is not that there's active reshoots, but that the active first wave of principal photography is still ongoing after a temporary COVID bump. And that matches with the headline we have from Deadline as well. Looking at the live chatters, I want to say hey to Oscar, Kino, and there's Cecilia. Hello, there's Nicholas. Everybody's there in the YouTube chat. I'm going to say hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody. Um, and welcome to the show, being here early. Um, I don't know about the other rumors, but we can confirm
We
that Weta Workshop, that was another thing you said last week. We can confirm that Weta Workshop has individuals working on costumes and weapons. Working, not, cheers to that, but not, clink, not full on, not at the level, not at the same level where they were on the Hobbit movies or on the Lord of the Rings movies, but they're there. They are there with other designers and other workers who are doing some things on the ground. But perhaps it should be noted that not to a huge degree. Like they're not in charge of all of the designs and making it look in any specific way matching the previous 6 films. That's not what I'm saying. But there are technicians, craftspeople, doing the weapons and distressing the armor and using all their magic paints and effects to make hero armor look like it's been
okay.
weathered and
That's
beaten
That's
and
good news. I'm glad that checked out
bruised
now.
armor, chipped pieces. And the realism towards their costume work should hopefully be on display. So we can confirm that Weta Workshop has people there doing that actively.
Zenless Zerbia asks, do you think they would bring in more famous actors? Yes, we've heard that the actual stars of the show have not been announced yet, and they are
Yes.
big stars. We're talking AAA Oscar-winning stars. We've heard some rumors here. There's room. So we talked about Kaya Scodelario, Brazilian actress, who flew to New Zealand and then flew to Canada. Now, this makes sense that she would be in Canada starting shooting on another project if they are delaying the actual series. So they're still in pilot mode with Lord of the Rings, which means that the series, the rest of the series is delayed in production. That means they probably released the actors that are scheduled for future episodes, and they will bring them back. So that would make sense why Kaya Scodelario is currently in Canada. Fun fact, she is in the same town, the same small town that Ian McKellen lived in when he was shooting X-Men, right before he went to New Zealand.
Oh, how about that? That's great. What a great connection.
I
Speaking of
believe
Ian
it's called
McKellen,
Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, is where Kaya Scodelario is, and that's where Ian McKellen lived while they shot X-Men, the first X-Men movie. And of course, Cliff, you remember the stories of New Line desperately wanting Ian McKellen. Fox was like, "Ooh, he's shooting our movie. Can you delay his parts?" And New Line moved around their production schedule.
Mhm,
Ian McKellen actually showed up months late into production.
mhm.
So we
Yes.
think my theory is that actors of the caliber of Kaya Scodelario, who was the actress star of the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and it has some amazing films coming out in the next few weeks. Um, that she's just been delayed, and she will be brought to New Zealand because I still think that she's in it. We still got a dollar bet with some of our chatters in the room. Now, Cliff, the reason
Funny.
I want to say that they are recasting some of the roles is that on Vimeo in the last week, multiple audition tapes were posted to Vimeo and accidentally left public. We have major actors from Rome and Game of Thrones and other huge shows that have recently wrapped up that have sent in their audition tapes for characters in Lord of the Rings. So this means that this is normal, right? This is normal that when you shoot a pilot, you see how the actors gel, and if they don't work, you recast, and you refilm. And they did that with Stuart Townsend and Viggo Mortensen. Isn't this correct?
They did. Yes, they did.
This is normal. This is normal production. This is exciting that they recognize that there's a part of the pilot that isn't quite gelling, and it's great to acknowledge that and say, "All right, you know what? That's not working. Let's recast it. Let's refilm it.
Wow.
It'll take more time."
I didn't know that there was any news or rumors. I didn't know there were any rumors of actresses or actors being replaced on the cast. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Um, but um, I wonder what's going to happen when. Oh God, I know this is reaching way into the distance, but 2021 will not even predictably be a year where we will see any of this at all. It probably won't be ready for broadcast until 2022. Okay, so as as a general understanding, we should go that 2022 is when this stuff will probably be broadcast on Amazon Prime. Um, uh, we don't know what's going on with the production in terms of the other 6 episodes in season 1, but they're not filming that right now. They are just filming the 2 episode pilot, which is, like you said, like a feature film that will be broken down into 2 chunks. So, you know, it's like Kill Bill, and then we'll have volume 1 and volume 2. So this opening salvo, I, I wonder, without without there being any convention season left, there's no New York Comic Con, there's no other convention season, and we are uncertain if next year WonderCon or San Diego Comic Con will even exist in the way that we thought it would. Um, the DC Fandom event was highly, highly successful, and something like that might happen where Amazon does an online um, festival or an online fan convention with some streaming materials. And I don't know what might happen in the future, but I guarantee you guys, it's not going to really. We're not going to see the show broadcast until 2022. At this rate, I sense that things might slow down, and my suspicion is that they will stop entirely until after that pilot movie is looked at by everybody. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at it. Jeff Bezos, the Tolkien estate, and the Amazon board of directors, not to mention all these new people they just hired to come in and work on it in terms of marketing. Also, it's worth mentioning, didn't the first press release come out in 2017? So is it safe to say that they've had 3 years already? 3 years working on this? producing it, writing it, and working on this. And they have not done what New Line Cinema did. Within 3 years of time, New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers, they made inroads to have a relationship with the fan community. And in 3 years, Amazon Studios has not lifted a finger to open up, relations with the fan community. They haven't offered anybody to appear on the horizon as a liaison between the studio and the fans. You're kidding. You're kidding. You were not kidding. Yes. Though, how long ago were those leaked? Those audition tapes. How long
That
ago
was
were
this
those
week.
leaked?
That was these auditions were this week, so they are definitely casting and recasting for the pilot, not just the show. Now, Cliff, when it comes to television series, um, it's common to introduce new characters after the first two episodes.
Yes.
So it's quite possible that an actress like Kaya Scodelario and other big actors will not be in the pilot. They might show up in episode 3, 4, 5, as suddenly, a king of a certain land or something like that. It's
Yes.
it's quite possible.
That's quite likely. Yes. In Game of Thrones, some of the lead characters who were related to each other were not shown until episode 4 or 5. Like, we didn't know who these relatives were in the Eyrie, and we didn't know that the Stark family had familial relationships with another, household. And in the and we didn't, and then we learned, oh, all these people have a background of relationships, and that does happen sometimes. By the time you get to episodes 4 or 5, yeah, that's quite possible.
Oscar
That's
Villa
just as
asks,
likely as
could
anything.
Will Poulter be recasted? He already has been recasted by what's his name? Robert Arameo, who was young, who was
Yes.
the young version of Sean Bean's character in Game of Thrones. So Robert Arameo, he's on set. Um, he is the new, what we think is the younger Elrond. So a lot of people in the chat room asking about that very controversial posting from last week, Cliff, about background actors comfortable being in the nude. And the fandom was pretty split on if this is a ruination of Tolkien's legacy or if it's true to
According
Tolkien.
to Daniel here in the YouTube chat, he says that the rumors of the nudes were from an extras casting agency that happened to be in Auckland. So Auckland was putting out word that the extras on the show would have to be able to be comfortable with nudity, and it was part of the job. And all actors are told ahead of time when they are going into an audition whether the job would require nudity. That is always a standard industry standard routine to offer that language. It doesn't mean for sure that it's going to be, uh, in the final product, but for the audition's sake, they needed to know. And
Well,
I
that that
wonder,
that made me go back and look at the history of art in Middle Earth and the depictions of the creation of the elves and things like that. And we've got some beautiful artwork from Ted Naismith and others that have characters, Middle Earth characters, fully in the buff. And of course, we've
hmm,
already seen the naked dwarves taking a bath together in Rivendell
Yeah.
to much humor. So the idea of being naked for this is not against Tolkien. In fact, it might be more appropriate for Tolkien than we've ever seen before.
Well, before we get down that rabbit hole, and by the way, I want everybody watching the show to know that that tweet was not me. Thank you. And I did not instigate that conversation. I'm going to get back to Daniel on the live chat, who says that the talent agency did not disclose that it was for LOTR. They did not disclose
Sarah,
that.
well, Sarah says nudes that could mean bodies on a battlefield who might have been stripped or battle
Mhm.
damaged. That's
That's
quite
also true.
possible. That's very
Battle
true.
corpses, if they didn't want to build what, wait, something like Apocalypto, or or even in the Domey Korakovsky film, uh, Tolkien, where you're in a pit filled with bloody bodies, lots and lots and lots of bloody
That's
bodies.
right. But Cliff,
Some of them are going to be prosthetic bodies that are made by the special effects department, and some of them are going to be actual people and extras. So yeah, but the whole thing about the representation of nudity or hedonism, which was that was such a head scratching moment, because I don't know why you even use that word, Justin. Um, uh, some people actually took exception to uh, the 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 predisposition of your question, what you put forward. I, I I I was actually reminded of an article that I wrote 20 years ago, one of the earliest articles that I wrote as a think piece. We were writing a lot of think pieces for the OneRing.net. And 20 years ago, I wrote a piece in defense of escapism. Um, and I said that there were three things in Tolkien's storytelling that are so wonderful that they're absent. The absence of foul language, abrasive foul language, guns, firearms, no guns, no language, and no sex, no sexuality. Those three things. When you take those elements out of the storytelling, as Professor Tolkien described it in his letters, purged of the gross, his stories were purged of those things, like people taking a bathroom break, or people copulating in graphic or specific ways, or the fact that the modern world and all of the great annoyances and all the troublesome things that put us in any storytelling in context between what is a fantasy and what is more realistically represented as our primary world. I love those elements that are gone. There's no guns, there's no sex, and there's no language. Like, there's a different language, there's a different world. And because Tolkien has an entirely different thing that he's doing, it is transportive. It is particularly effective to the reader, to anybody, I think, who reads his powerful language. They are transported into Arda because of these distinct differences between his creation and our world. And yet still, all of the characters, all of the dramatis personae have their morality plays out. The morality plays between these characters are played out in a realistic way that we recognize as part of our primary world, even though it is a fresh and wholly new secondary world. So I would never have posited what you put forth in your tweet. Justin, I would never put it forth like that, because I'm grateful to the absence of all those things.
So you're saying so you're
That's what
saying
makes the escapism work as escapism, and that is why it's incredibly therapeutic. Really, really therapeutic
so the
to me.
issue is
To
not
me,
nudity.
anyways.
It's the graphic. It's the explicitness. Tolkien made every effort to get rid of the disgusting, the grossness. You don't see a stream of pee. You don't see copulation. But
Yeah,
the you
it's
know that
even
it's
it's even bad enough that there are no poop jokes. There are no jokes about flatulence. In fact, if I go and look at my thesaurus, I don't think that the word flatulence is ever even used. Not even in a polite society kind of way. Like, ooh, somebody just let a
So
tablespoon of
is
air
that
go out of their bum. Tolkien does not say things like that.
was that a big criticism for you with the Hobbit movies, where Bombord does let it out?
No. Um, the whole thing with the Hobbit movies and why they're all naked taking a bath in the Rivendell fountains is probably a throw back to the Fellowship of the Ring, which has that chapter when they're at Frodo's visit to Buckland after he's left Bag End and pretended that he was moving to Buckland, and he has this rental house that their friend, their relative, Fatty Bolger, has set up for. There's Merry and Pippin and Frodo, all naked. They're naked, running around, bathing and splashing in the hot water, making a mess. And Tolkien goes into playful detail about, the hobbits running around naked on the grass after they are rescued by Tom Bombadil, after they are rescued from the evil undead of the Barrow Wights. There's naked hobbits running around on the hillside, per Tom's instructions. So, Professor Tolkien has a complete innocence, in his regard to nudity. It is only written about in terms of playtime, rolling around in the bathtub and splashing your friends, and snapping your towel at your friends, which is what the dwarves do in the Hobbit movie, and then being able to shake off the spell of evil from an undead creature, and to lift their spirits. Tom Bombadil tells the hobbits that nudity and running free in the grass is a therapeutic mechanism to help break the spell of evil that has been cast over their hearts. And so them running around naked in the grass and the hillsides is something else that's where nudity appears in the Lord of the Rings.
Wasn't
And
Frodo naked at the top
everybody
of the
who's read the
tower?
books, everybody who has read the books knows how innocent it is. Everybody who is a fan of reading these books, not the movies, everybody knows the intention behind the author and how pure they are.
Wasn't Frodo naked when Sam found him at the top of the tower?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Yes.
So we've already had this. So positing that casting announcement should not have been negative because it's normal, because there's so many reasons that you would need to request that and acknowledge that. um, but Cliff, we've talked about Numenor and the history of Numenor and how it was the center of commerce and culture, and it was Atlantean in
Thank you, Daniel.
inspiration. And there's got to be some elements of a modern society and its um what's the word, faults, you know
Okay. So, all right. So here comes the Brian Cogman conversation in terms of what is his influence going to be on the storytelling. Because the Tolkien fans who read the books, you don't find brothels and, Littlefinger, you know, working his schemes in you don't always cut back to, oh, interior scene, brothel, background, naked girls are giggling and traipsing around wearing nothing but fig leaves or nothing at all. And then uh,
but we do have
rubbing
rape and incest,
there in the darkest stories of Tolkien, there is
which
all
this
that
which
crazy
this
stuff.
series is based on. The darkest stories from Tolkien's pen is what this series is based on.
Well, the dark part of the Second Age is Sauron's corruption of the Númenóreans, and that leads to like an ancient Aztec human sacrifice thing, where they're at the top of the pyramid, sacrificing people to the gods, to the ancient Mesoamerican gods, and to have a pure harvest. Again, another reference to Apocalypto. I don't mean to do that, but Numenor ends up getting violent, not on the incest and rape level, but getting ghoulishly horrible with the human sacrifice and the satanic worship, quote unquote, the Sauron worship of Morgoth. So when Sauron corrupts the hearts of the Numenorians, it's all metaphysical. It's all metaphysical corruption leading to torture of dissidents. And on the opposite side of the Numenorian island were the faithful, the men, El Elendil, who were faithful to the Valar. And, they were not going up to the top of Menel Tarma and cutting hearts out of living human sacrifices for the sake of Morgoth. That's what we're going to see. It is going to be as dark and horrifying as you could ever imagine, but that's still what Tolkien wrote. I mean, the second age doesn't see all the problems of incest and rape and all that crazy stuff that you see in the first age. In the first age, it's crazier than that. Crazy. I'm just saying. But maybe, also in fair response to your Twitter thread, people were also talking about what do you get out of Tolkien as an individual. We, as individuals, are part of this community, and we're all sharing this experience coming from that basic concept. What are we getting out of Tolkien? As individuals, we all ask ourselves that, and we tell our friends and our loved ones, this is why I love this book so much. Do you know what I'm getting out of this? It makes me feel hopeful against all the despair in the world. That's what people get out of Tolkien much of the time. And they also want to share a lot of other sensations and experiences of how they see themselves and see their own lives within the lives of these characters. It is not for anybody else to say. It's not for anybody else to say except the individual what they're getting out of Tolkien. However, to the point of Amazon Studios spending $1 billion on a TV series, they have to keep in mind always what fans are getting out of Tolkien, because that's what they should be producing as
Let me
part of
ask you
their
this.
effort. They should be mindful of what we're getting out of the books, the experience, the feeling, the way Tolkien makes us feel. And if they're even giving some thought to that as they progress in their production, then maybe we'll have some interesting results.
The genius of Peter Jackson and Ralph Bakshi before him was getting the core fans, the hardcore, the ringers on board in the first hour, right? Like the first hour of the Hobbit trilogy is perfection. The first hour of Lord of the Rings is perfection. There is so much fan service, loyalty to the book, fidelity to Tolkien in the beginnings of that. And by getting us on board, by getting the core fans on board in that first hour, puts us at ease, and then he allows himself to take us on this journey where Two Towers looks nothing like the book. The characters in the Two Towers are nothing like the book. Faramir, I'm looking at you. So, but by that point, we've already trusted him. We've trusted him because he's proven his loyalty to Tolkien. So I wanted to say that because the pilot is so important, not just for being a good series. The pilot must maintain fidelity to Tolkien. Don't you think, Cliff? To get us on board and take us on a journey.
The Lord of the Rings films and the Hobbit films, when you compare them side by side, you can look at the Hobbit films and the way that it was not embraced the same way that the Lord of the Rings movies. The Lord of the Rings movies were embraced so much more because they had so much that actually felt, even with the changes of Faramir dragging the hobbits all the way to Osgiliath, looking at you, all that other stuff, it still stood as an amazing presence of a story that you would look at that and say, oh, that feels like Tolkien. And The Hobbit had those moments, like the opening 45 or 50 minutes in Bag End, Riddles in the Dark, the Riddles in the Dark scene with Gollum, the scene of inside information, with Bilbo talking with the dragon. There were some moments in the Hobbit trilogy that really stand perfectly as, oh, that's it. You look at that and you say, that's Tolkien. That's it.
But don't you feel that we need that in the
many.
first pilot? We need to feel that in the pilot. If we're not on board with the pilot, the rest of the series
It does have to be in there. When the fans were not on board, no longer on board with The Hobbit, was because stuff on The Hobbit it doesn't feel like, earnest. Like earnestly, it does not feel like Tolkien sometimes. So if this Lord of the Rings TV show comes onto Amazon Prime and it looks and feels like The Witcher, right? What if it's some generic fantasy show like The Witcher or something, but it's been branded as Tolkien? Are we going to be comfortable with that? Everybody needs to just think about that for 5 minutes. Are we as a fandom going to, and look at the track record. The Lord of the Rings has way, way, way much more success in keeping fidelity, or perhaps you could say the verisimilitude. That's a nice word, isn't it? The verisimilitude of Tolkien and his storytelling is, and in the Hobbit movie, you see it, couple of points in the story here and there where it really falls into place perfectly, and you're like, yes, that's Tolkien. Even with Christopher Lee sitting there talking to Gandalf and Elrond and Galadriel, and they're talking to each other about weird stuff going on in the world. You're like, oh, that feels like Tolkien. But the stuff in the Battle of the Five Armies, where they're
totally.
It's just, you're like, what? What happened with Alfred?
Yeah, well,
Alfred
speaking of fidelity to Tolkien, Cliff, we've got a few minutes left. We tweeted out
Yes,
this
we're
afternoon.
Almost out of time. We're almost out of time. Yes.
Hey, folks, what is the current opinion of Bad Robot in general fandom? And people in the chat room just want to know, what was that about? The replies were interesting. They've had me as a fan ever since Lost.
Okay.
I've been a JJ fan since Lost. Other opinions, not good. Flashy special effects with no substance or originality. Rise of Skywalker and Star Trek Into Darkness show that J.J. Abrams, when working with existing series, imitates what has come before with flashy effects and snappy dialogue, but has absolutely no understanding as to why those series work or what they mean. And then let the memes do the talking. Just the mention of Bad Robot. This is a good one. Great casting, lots of energy and verve. Zero story sense, crippling nostalgia. I like that. I like that phrase, crippling nostalgia. It's almost a hindrance. They're just a production company. The two Star Wars films, The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, ended up as bad movies. So I wanted to bring that up. 10 Cloverfield Lane is only the really good movie from them. Here's the thing. If you noticed, other than Lost, everybody's talking about movies. But if we look at Bad Robot's TV series, Lovecraft Country is currently on HBO, and it's one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. It is serialized science fiction horror, and it's amazing. And it is one of my favorite shows right now. Lovecraft Country is amazing. Westworld, one of the best TV shows of the last 20 years, bar none. Westworld, their pilot was amazing, and their first 2 seasons were stellar. Westworld's amazing. Of course, Lost.
I'm a big fan of Fringe. If you're going to mention Bad Robot, I have to talk about Leonard Nimoy and John Noble himself, our very own Denethor, in Fringe and how much I enjoyed that series. I have to mention that. Don't you remember how wonderful it was that one of the last things that Leonard Nimoy did before he died was to work hand in hand with Denethor on this extraordinary uh, TV show Fringe, which was like, the X-Files gone to the 21st century and crossing over to a parallel universe. It was so cool.
They also did Person of Interest, which is an amazing show, Alias, and Castle Rock, which is currently on television. Uh, Star Wars, Mission Impossible, Overlord, Star Trek. But those are all movies. If we stick to television, they are amazing. They are amazing, Cliff. And
Yes. Well,
why would we want to know what fans feel about Bad Robot? Because the reactions I saw on Twitter were all movie based. It was a lot of opinions in general. A lot of opinions are beautiful movies. They know how to produce great things. They know how to get us to the cinema. But understanding what made Star Trek was so out of Bad Robot's wheelhouse. They didn't understand what made Star Trek Star Trek. And then fast forward to their Star Wars trilogy. Rather than exploring Star Wars, they just retold the story we've already been told. So there was no and then Rey is a Palpatine rather than the core tenet of Star Wars, which is anyone can step up. A farm boy can step up and be Rey is a Palpatine. So the core criticism about Bad Robot is that they don't understand what made series what they are. And that is a valid criticism, but that's only valid to movies. Their television shows have been incredible. Incredible. Their television shows, especially Lovecraft Country, understand the history of Lovecraft. And they understand Lovecraft was an incredible racist.
Of course, yes.
And eugenics. And the fact that they've made Lovecraft Country the show it is, in spite of that, is referencing an entire history that, if you know about, just makes it a better show.
Well, you can definitely see the hand of executive producer Jordan Peele over all the proceedings. And I was going to cancel my HBO membership, and I think I might finish watching Lovecraft Country first, and then cancel it after that. I would like to see Watchmen. I want to see another season or 2 or 3 of the multiple.
I don't. Watchmen was perfect as a standalone series, and I hope
it might be so. It might be so. I do want to see more, the Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance, but everybody knows I feel that way about that. Okay.
So anyway, time for the Green Dragon gossip, Cliff. The reason I'm asking about Bad Robot is the rumors are because the Lord of the Rings has had so much production trouble for 3 years that Amazon has been looking all around the world for help in taking this series to completion. And they've asked everybody, and they said, who's the best high-profile television production? Who has the best team to produce tentpole, exciting television? And if you look at Westworld, Fringe, Alias, Lovecraft Country, Lost, Person of Interest, the list becomes one: Bad Robot. So if we start to hear some Bad Robot engagements and affiliations with Lord of the Rings, we should see that as a positive, because they really know television. They don't know anything about fan movies and engaging fans. And they've totally disrespected Star Trek fandom, and they've totally disrespected Star Wars fandom. And I have to believe that you talked about earlier in the show that there's been no fan engagement between Amazon's TV series and the fans. And it doesn't have to be us. They've not reached out to any fan group. They've not been on Reddit. They've not been engaging at all to anybody.
Especially when you compare to where New Line Cinema was 3 years into the game of making their Lord of the Rings trilogy. They had already reached out to the OneRing.net and had the best possible, and that was helped along by Ian McKellen and his website, McKellen.com, and other people like Barry Osborne, the big time producer man. Barry Osborne was so agreeable that he got Mark Ordesky, and Mark Ordesky and their team of people worked with all the fans to be at all the events to share as much enthusiasm and insights and details about their respect for Tolkien and the verisimilitude to Tolkien. Dare I say the fidelity to Tolkien? That
Would you? But would you say that the respect?
They're not doing this at all. They're not doing this at all right now. To reach out to the fans. It has to. It has to, because they're not going to be able to just make some video game fantasy TV show, like make it look like The Witcher or something, and then slap a label on it and say that's Tolkien, and then have that pass muster. The rest of us could smell it coming a mile away. I mean, we'll find out when we get there. Ultimately,
remember when Park Road Post, Weta Studios, and Weta Digital and Weta Workshop used to put hiring notices at the One Ring? They wanted to hire fans, and we asked some of the Oscar winners of Lord of the Rings, why was Lord of the Rings so good? What made it so good? And they said because they hired fans. Because fans would put in the extra work. Fans would put in the extra 30 minutes at the end of the day to make the shot perfect. Because one little thing was...
You mean the carpenters, painters, sculptors, lighting, the gaffers who were working with the plants and the planting department and the greens and the cables and the electric lights that they were hanging over your head. They were all hardcore Lord of the Rings fans.
And digital, post-production, the visual effects, everything. So you just get an extra extra effort when everybody is on Team Tolkien. And Cliff, I can tell you right now, we have not heard much of anything about who on production is Team Tolkien.
Makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. I'm trying to spend my time finding some of these individuals on Twitter and on Instagram and following them and trying to read what I can and pay attention and read between the lines. I'll do the best I do the best that I can with friends guiding me through my research. But so as we're still being held close to the vest, that we don't know what's going on.
As we wrap up the show, because we're running out of time, I want to say, look, you don't have to. You can still keep things close to the chest, and you can still maintain secrecy. But Bad Robot has a history of disrespecting the biggest franchise fan bases. Just totally, and the fact that J.J. Abrams and the entire Bad Robot ecosystem lied to Trek fans for the entire marketing push of Star Trek, saying Benedict Cumberbatch is not Khan. He lied to our faces. I mean, not only did he not understand what made Star Trek so beloved, he had the gall to lie to fans to their faces. And in order to keep the secret, in order to keep the mystery box going, I'm sick of mystery boxes. Lord of the Rings doesn't have a mystery box. It has Sauron creating a ring of power and 19 rings of power that he then controls. So, we don't need a mystery box. So I'm telling you, Bad Robot does great television. I love Westworld. I love Fringe. You love Fringe. Person of Interest, Alias, Lovecraft Country. They've done Bad Robot's done so much great on television. They really know how to produce it. But don't put them in control of Lord of the Rings. I don't think they're the right company. I don't think they have the right I don't think they have the right energy to deal with something with Lord of the Rings, which is
Mm,
so interdependent on the cultural conversation that the fans provide and how important the
mhm,
source material is and the
mhm,
intent of the author and the intent of the author's son and the intent of the estate and what the fans want to engage. Look, we don't have to be on set. It is a fluke that you are in Return of the King. That was just a nice thing to have. Bad Robot does not have a history of being engaging with fans, and I don't know how many times we can say it through the roofs, but go to New Line Cinema, go pay them to be consultants, figure out what they did right, because that's what Lord of the Rings wants and deserves. And I tell you, you're not going to have a hit series unless we're on board in that first episode. So
mm. Indeed.
I
Well,
hope that Bad Robot is being kept at arm's length. We don't know yet if they're fully involved and engaged, but I can tell you that, as you know, they've had a ton of production problems. They're still recasting the pilot. They're still shooting the pilot, which puts them behind schedule on the whole series, which
mhm.
triggers some contractual things with the Tolkien estate because the schedule keeps slipping. So there's a lot going on, and I can tell you, Bad Robot looks like the right answer, but from a fan perspective, Bad Robot I think might be the wrong answer. So we'll see how this
Wow.
plays out. If I hear anything more, we keep you up to date. That's the Green Dragon gossip.
Wow. That and so closes another edition of the Green Dragon. We are sending the patrons home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. It's 2 a.m. Closing time. Okay, so we're going to close these doors on that little editorial. But again, reminding the folks that that's just a rumor that Bad Robot is being brought to the table as a possible production entity working at some level. It's just a weird rumor, and we'll leave it in the box with the other Russell Crowe rumors. We've been
The
hearing that Russell
the the,
Crowe
the
is down there
mystery
filming in
box.
New Zealand.
And just to
We'll have a
wrap up
rumor
this
box. We'll just throw it in there.
the mystery box. That's what Bad Robot
The
likes to do.
mystery
And just
box.
to
Yeah.
remind everybody, this was a special early episode. We usually are not on until 5 o'clock, but there is something
Yes.
really important on television tonight, and I
Yeah.
think we should all watch. Cliff, thank you for encouraging us to do this show early because the future of the free world is at stake, and I think we need to pay attention.
Yes, we do. Let's all pay attention, and we'll talk hobbits next week. We can definitely talk next week. Until then, everybody, you can find us on theonering.net on all Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and myself, I'm online at QuickBeam2000. I'm your host, Clifford Broadway, signing off. Make sure you stay tuned next Monday. We're going to have a really, really big special announcement from a very, yeah, it'll be the talk of the town on Monday next. And it's not rumor, it'll be real news. Then we'll say to everyone good night and good luck, as I like to say, buenas noches y buena suerte. Bye, everybody.